Okay, it is 4 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. I am Ray Lindenberg, Senior Planner, City of Oak Harbor. Welcome. What we're going to do today is you have your packet, I think, either in front of you or in your mind or somewhere. If you don't, I will be happy to kind of lead us through that. It's not a huge deal if you don't. There's only 2 items on the agenda, so it's not a big deal. So what we're going to do today is, starting off with the first part of the agenda, is we're going to do our roll call. For the people that are here, I see Gideon is not here today. I see Greg and Nick and Kelly. Correct? Good. Okay. We will check off on those. And then we will have the approval of the minutes. You'll have the minutes attached there, and if you need a copy, we can get that to you or put it up on the screen. That is in your packet. Essentially what we need to do is have an approval. Somebody can say that they wish to approve the minutes from the previous meeting and then have a second and vote on that. I believe, Kelly, that you're probably not going to be able to participate in this, so we're going to leave it up to the other two to do that portion of it. I will turn it over to you to do that.
I'll approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Second.
We get a vote, please?
All
Aye?
in favor?
All in favor? Yeah. Okay, thank
Great.
you. So we have 2 out of 3 people on that one. Yay. Okay, so item number 3 is public comment. We have also public hearing. There are no public hearings today, and I don't see anybody in the public here to make any comments, so we will pass that by. If we do have in the future anybody who wants to come in and make general presentation about matters relating to the Historic Preservation Commission, this would be the time that they would do that. And that is also something that if somebody wants to submit a written comment or request or anything like that, that we can do that at that time. It doesn't have to be on the agenda. If there's something on the agenda that somebody specifically wants to speak about, then they would do it during that time period as it's listed on the agenda. And so what I'm trying to do right now is kind of set this up for the chairperson to understand how it all works. There will be a lot more information to come once we pick that person. So we'll just kind of start from the very basic level as we go through this. So number 4, like I said, we don't have any public hearings today. Number 5 is our discussion, action, presentation, and report items. Letter A there is the selection of the chair and the vice chair. So I believe that Gideon has requested to not be thrown under the bus at this meeting because he does have he does have other boards that he works with. He will be able to be here during certain times, but cannot guarantee that he will always be able to be here. So between the 3 of you, if you would like to discuss who might want to be the chair and the vice chair of this commission, I will turn that over to you for your discussion.
Yeah, this is Nick. I'm going to nominate Kelly as the chair for this commission.
I'll second that motion.
Okay? And can we have a vote on that?
Kelly, you can vote as well.
Okay, great. Okay, I believe at this time, as the new chair of our Historic Preservation Commission, Kelly, you can request or set up a vote for the vice chair. So what you will do at this time is say, we'd like to have discussion for determination of a vice chair, and then you can have somebody nominate, do the second, it's going to be the other 2, and then call for a vote on that one.
We'd like to have a discussion, please, to nominate a vice chairman.
I'll nominate Nick to be vice chair.
I'll second that.
Then the chair can call for the vote. Chair can call for the vote on that.
All those in favor?
Okay, good deal. Okay, so Kelly, I will get some information to you on parliamentary procedure and everything, so you know what it is you're supposed to be doing. This is your first meeting, and we don't want to just throw you straight into the pool. So I will get that information to you along with any other things that we talk about today, so we can have that process going. And you'll have 2 months to think about it because we only meet every other month. So, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to now turn over the agenda to you, and you can introduce item 5B on the agenda.
The next agenda will be the overview of the Historic Preservation Committee, the review of duties and responsibilities.
Thank you. Members of the commission, I'm Ray Lindenberg, Senior Planner. What we're going to talk about today, and it's not going to be a super in-detailed, long presentation, but I wanted to give you an introduction into kind of the more specific Oak Harbor process that we have. Last time, we talked about kind of the concept and the ideas behind the process that we got to the Historic Preservation Commission and how the state puts forth standards for the procedures and everything that go along with it. They gave us a model ordinance to follow. And so we got the training, the Preservation 101 training last time from DAP. And again, Kelly, if you'd like, I can get you that information so that you can be fully on board with that. So what I'll do is just kind of go through the staff report quickly. Oh, okay, sorry, we did do the minutes. I'm skipping over that, sorry. What I'll do first is discuss sorry, I'm still scrolling here. It's much easier on paper. Okay. So as a background, the Main Street Association requested that the state, or that we go through the process to become a certified local government through the state. And so what that does is it allows certain tax benefits for property owners when they do work to their historic buildings and things like that. And it's an official recognition as well. And so we went through that process through the state of Washington, the DAP, Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation. And so in 2018, the City Council adopted that ordinance, which added Chapter 1850 to the Oak Harbor Municipal Code. 1850 is available in your packet there for reference, and that's what we'll be referring to kind of as we go through today's discussion and also in the future when we talk about any of the processes that we're going through. That is the chapter that will guide our discussions. So essentially what happened originally was when we first started the Historic Preservation Commission, we had a 7-member team, and we determined through the intervening years where we had some people drop off of the commission, and then we had a pandemic and trying to get restarted again, that 5 was probably a better number to be able to get a quorum, because then we only need to have 3 people attend. And that just makes it a little bit easier reach to get there, and we thank you for attending. And so that is kind of where we're at right now. The new bylaws that are also attached to your staff report there, to your packet, reflect those new numbers. That is the updated set of bylaws that was approved in December of 2023 when the City Council and staff went through, I believe, all of the bylaws from all of our commissions and boards to make sure that everything was updated. So that should be on there to kind of help you with your process and what it is that we do in the meetings. So just as a kind of hitting the high points there, you're here because you want to be here. You have an interest in historic preservation. That's kind of the key thing that we have for our membership. We do require that we have 2 professionals who have experience in some sort in protecting, evaluating, identifying historic resources from the disciplines of architecture history, architectural history, planning, prehistoric and historic archaeology, et cetera, et cetera. So that is, kind of the makeup of the board itself. The mayor is the one who chooses the names from a list, and we have a list that is kind of updated with people who are interested in joining boards and commissions. And so you can select the one that you're kind of interested in most. That's how people end up on those various boards. And so the duties and responsibilities is kind of the main portion of this report. There is a bullet list there, and it's kind of lengthy, but to be perfectly honest, it's all kind of boiled down into a couple of different main categories. The main categories being to conduct and maintain an inventory of historic resources. And those historic resources are found on a map that we have, and this is just the resource map. It's just dots showing potentially places, locations, buildings that might be eligible for inclusion on the historic registry. And the registry is the more formal thing that people have to request to be on. Right now we have one location on our historic registry. That's the Neal Tower over off of East Whidbey, close to Oak Harbor Street. And that was put on there because it was a city property, and we kind of went through that process to see how it all worked. And so we did that, and that's been the only one so far. We are hoping to get more interest and get more people, private owners, to want to be on the historic registry. We also do have one property that's on the National Register of Historic Places. That's the Lowerland House, which is down at the corner of Swantown and the highway. It's the Onion Dome House. And that one is on the National Historic Register, and I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe that is a fairly easy transference onto our registry if we want to. Typically, we're only going to take ones that people request. We can go through and do districts and things like that. There's a special process for it. I'm not sure if it's even in our ordinance, but it is available. Yes.
And when you say by request, is it typically would be the owner that would request?
Yeah. And so what we do is when you go through those next few bullets there, it says review nominations for inclusion on the register, review proposals to change or modify places on the register. So if you own a home or a building that is older than 50 years, you can apply for inclusion on the registry. And essentially what happens is somebody gets their information together and they present it to staff. And I write up a staff report that says, this is how this building meets the criteria and the intent of the historic registry. And I present it to you. And then you are the ones who say, yes, this looks good. We agree with your assessment here. We recommend approval to the historic registry, and we put it on the map. Or you say, no, you know what? They tore down the entire facade and replaced it with glass. It doesn't apply anymore. So that typically wouldn't happen, because if somebody came into me and I saw that they'd replaced the facade with glass, I would tell them it doesn't work anymore. So generally, if we're bringing it to you, that means it's good to go. And so the reason that they would want to do that is, number one, for the recognition, but also number two, for potential tax benefits. And that brings us to the other criteria. The other reason that you're here is to go through and review for, what's it called? Review for, I've lost it. I lost it on the list. No, I'm looking at my list here. And it's a special terminology and I've lost it. I'm glad there's nobody watching this right now. Okay, I'm going to scroll just a minute. I apologize. Okay, review and monitor properties for special property tax valuation. And what that's saying is that if you have a historic property that is that you want to do renovations to or changes to, that when they propose those changes, we review it and make sure it still meets the criteria, and then they can apply for special dispensation through their property tax because they are on that. And so it's an official process because it goes down to the tax assessor in Coupeville, and they can get tax benefits on that. And that would apply to any building that is on the registry. And so essentially what that does is any increase in value that's created by your renovation is offset tax-wise. So it has to go through that special process. Yes.
Okay, this has been going since 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And not a lot of folks have submitted anything into the commission?
Zero.
Is this something that we, as the commission, should solicit? Or is there like some kind of document or something we can put together to send out to building owners that would suggest, hey, you have a historic building, you might want to take advantage of the tax incentive programs?
Right. So that is one of the things that I have kind of in my notes separate of the staff report is some of the things that we can do, right? Get out and get that information out there. Generally, let me finish this part of it, and I will move on to that. Thank you for asking that question, though. So a couple of the other things are to participate in educational programs pertaining to historic resources, getting the word out there. And so that is kind of the sticking point that we had from the last go-round, or the first go-round of the commission, was that there was a lot of interest in getting information out there, but a lot of kind of questions of how to do it. And so one of the things that previous group had settled on was the idea of doing booths at community events and things like that. And so in early 2020, we talked about doing that. So I think that the original intent was to get out, and have a tent or a booth at the Holland Happening or at 4th of July or something along those lines, and have some information and paperwork prepared talking about, what you were saying is, here are some benefits, here are the reasons why you might want to do this. So if that is something that you all want to approach, then that's something we can certainly do. And what I'd like to do today when we kind of get to the end of this presentation is talk about some ideas for outreach that you all might have, and then try and get into that as the summer months roll around. We start to get into some of those sort of things, whether it's community events or sending out letters or what have you. We do have, I believe, a little bit of budget at our disposal to do things like that. Whether it's sending out mailers or putting them in, and one of the things that we can do is put little cards in the utility bills that go out to everybody. And so there's always that possibility. The only possible downside of that is all of a sudden you have a big influx of people who are super interested, and we get 50 new applications that we have to look at. So there is always that concern. But if we want to start off small and talk to certain people, targeting neighborhoods, targeting the Main Street Association, the neighborhoods over here to the east side. School district has a couple buildings that are historic. I know that I talked to somebody about redeveloping that site where the Laurelland House is, because they're looking at possibly purchasing that property to do some multifamily on. Because that property is already kind of constrained. It's not a farm anymore. That adding more to it is not a huge deal as far as the historic preservation of it is concerned, because it's already compromised in that way. So if the building itself is preserved, then that is usually good enough to keep you on that list. So that's definitely something to talk about too. So what I will do is say that we have these opportunities to kind of interact with people. If there's community groups that you can think of, like I said, the Main Street Association, the Garden Club, whoever people have connections with, can certainly, you as members can do that on your own. You can enlist our assistance with that. We do have, like I said, a certain amount of time that we can do that. We're unfortunately not able to spend 40 hours a week doing historic preservation, but yeah, go ahead.
Who has the list of potential historic buildings or otherwise? First of all, does this, I noticed in the writing here that it only includes buildings, something made by mankind.
Right.
Does it not include statues, parks, anything like that?
It can, under certain circumstances. It can include places that there might not even be a building. But there has to be some reason, something happened here that was of historic import. And, whether it's Smith Park, we've talked about having Smith Park as a historic registry place. And again, because this is our City of Oak Harbor Historic Registry, it doesn't have to meet the higher standards of the federal registry, because when you get on the federal registry, you're severely limited in the things that you can do to your own property at that point. And with ours, we intentionally wrote the ordinance to allow it to be flexible. That if somebody wants to be on the registry and all of a sudden they decide they don't want to be on the registry, they can request to be removed because they want a demo or remodel or whatever it is.
Okay, so who has the list of potential buildings?
We have the map,
So,
and the map came from our assessor's data. And essentially, it just I went through and checked off everything that was built before 1968, I think, at the time. So everything that was more than 50 years old. So, yeah, go
Are
ahead.
we allowed to add to this potential list? Or do we
Certainly,
need-
absolutely. Because that list and that data that we have is not infallible by any means at all. And it might be wrong in other directions too. It might have a building that was built in 2002 on there and just accidentally got typed in wrong or something. So,
And
yeah.
how about working with the military?
What's that?
How, working with the military, any historical sites that on the Navy bases? That's probably an idea that we should put at the end.
We can
Yep.
certainly investigate that. I
Okay.
mean, it has to be within city limits, so that would limit us to the seaplane base. But yeah, that's certainly a possibility as well. And the thing is about it too is that they're not going to be applying for tax breaks, so it would be purely a ceremonial thing. And if it was a ceremonial thing, we'd probably want to have any kind of recognition of that placed on property that's outside the gates so that people can see it. So there's that. Yeah.
well, I would be happy to have Main Street be a part of this since I'm president of Main Street.
Yeah.
I know we have a listing of buildings, and I know we did the plaques with Gideon.
Right.
So we have kind of an idea of the buildings on there, and we also have a listing of the owners of the building. So there's always the potential to start with them.
Right, and honestly, it was the Main Street Association that kind of kicked off this whole process back in 2018, 2017. So anything that Main Street can provide to us, if you want to have a list of building owners who are interested in it, and they want information on what exactly it entails, number one, how you do it, number two, what happens when you do, I'm happy to provide that information if you want to get those together and send them to me. I would love to see all of those buildings that have plaques down there already be on our registry. Why not? So, yeah.
Do we know what the tax incentives are for these buildings?
I don't specifically, but I can get that information. It's readily available. So, yeah.
Now, when we last met, the lady from DAP talked about applying for grants and stuff.
Yes.
And one of the reasons for having a grant was to have potentially, I think, someone come here to do their own professional survey of potential areas.
Yeah.
Was that one of those options as well?
I believe that it was, and that was, there are grants available to the city to do things like that. There are also grants available to the building owners themselves. If when they get on the registry, they can apply for grant facade renovations, things like that. So that's also a possibility. I'm not sure, honestly, the city has our own grants person who goes out and looks for grants and applies for them and all that. So that is something that we can have her take a look at and chase down if there's anything available.
I remember specifically the grants were like due, or the proposals in April, yeah, because we
Yeah.
talked about, we'd have to then decide by March.
Right.
And there was no first come,
Yeah.
or serve
Well, that's right.
situation.
And our go-away was to come back to you with what grant we might want to go after. And I think we agreed right there that that's kind of the one that we could start with if you think we need somebody to come and do, a professional listing.
Yeah.
or-
Maybe in a non-Main Street area, because, well, we know Main Street, but maybe
You do.
somewhere else in our
True.
city.
Well,
Yeah.
and Gideon, isn't he the city historian?
He's the city archaeologist.
Archaeologist.
Yeah.
sorry. Not historian.
Them, I don't know if they, isn't that supposed to be for the whole island? They just seem to service Coopville. Because last time I went to see them, they were kind of in a busy time, so I was trying to go in there at the museum down there in Coopville, but they are supposed to service the whole island. Maybe we could check that out. Maybe they could help us out with some, because I know they get funding through the museum.
Okay.
That might be an idea. I don't know if you've ever worked with them or not, but
I have not.
usually
And
they solely just concentrate on Coopville, which I guess that's the county seat, but maybe they might have some leads on grants for us. I
Okay.
don't know, I have ideas.
One of the other things that we found out recently is that students at Western Washington in their urban planning program are available to do work like that, inventories and research and stuff like that. So that's also a possibility.
I think it was just one type of grant they had, and the money could be used for, and then she said like 10, 15, a lot more things,
Yeah.
and gave suggestions. So it was the DAP grant, if I'm going to call it anything else.
Since we're brand new, it might be the only logical grant that we should go after at this point.
Yeah, it was the one that made the most sense to me. I don't know if it was selfishly about going to a conference in October. That was fine, but that could be a next year thing too. That was
Okay.
the Washington.
Yeah, I will follow up with that. Yeah. Okay, and then let's see. So we talked about public relations, inventory map. So yeah, the inventory map, that's just kind of a general representation. Those dots are pretty general. They represent specific buildings, but in this situation, it's more of a pattern. You know, what are neighborhoods and what has a greater density? And you can see that some of them are, you know, like some of those mid-century houses along Northeast 5th Avenue or 6th Avenue up there, things like that. And so when we look at specific buildings, there's kind of a wide variety. You have the much older kind of early 1900s stock along Pioneer Way. You have also going into the 1950s, and those are historic now and worthy of preservation, I think, or at least recognition at some times. So there's that possibility as well. And what I would suggest, just from my standpoint, and this your commission, so I'm just making a suggestion here, is that if you have a specific location that you think should be targeted and have either contact with the owner or, you know, need information on owner contact, we can do that. We can do that sort of, you know, high level research, get out there and then put together something to send to them and say, hey, are you interested? And here are the benefits. And that's something that we could put together pretty easily and then get sent out fairly quickly too. So if that's something you want to do, like I said, what I would like to do here as I wrap up this conversation is to get maybe 2 or 3 kind of priorities that the commission wants to focus on. And kind of what I'm hearing right now is take a look at grant opportunities ASAP. So I'm going to put that as number 1. If you have a couple more that you want to have us focus on, whether it's outreach or, you know, booths and things like that, let's go ahead and have that conversation. So if you have any questions for me regarding the information I've given you right here, we can talk about that. Otherwise, I'm going to kind of open it up to you all to have a discussion.
Are we able to have a copy of that? Or
You certainly can. Yeah, I can get you an electronic version of that. And like I said, it's not exact, but it is a good general representation. And then I'll also get the information. I'll get it all to all of you on the parliamentary procedures as we go through this, so you all can understand how that all is supposed to work. So.
Before we have the electric version, can you tell us what the legend is even showing?
It's so the darker stuff is older. The lighter ones are newer. So the darker ones are pre-1900, and then we got a category for 1900s, 1910s, 1920s. They go by decade. Unfortunately, it's not super visible up here. But when I get you that PDF, I think you'll be able to zoom in a little bit better. I can always change the colors up to make it a little bit more clear. But essentially, I did it on a gradient to be kind of a heat map almost. You know, this is the area where they're the oldest. As you go north, they get newer. So it's just, like I said, it's a very general kind of representation of what we have here.
So when it comes to having an informational booth at an event, the Holland one is probably too soon. I'm imagining that's in April, right?
that's this month, isn't it? April?
End of
think
March,
so.
but yeah, coming up. I think it's in April.
If I knew exactly what the days
So
were.
we
Does
can find
anyone
out-
know when Holland Happening is?
And I don't,
Or are they still debating if it's happening? Isn't that a thing?
I'm
A
not
few
sure.
months ago?
That is something that we can look up, and
It's
to be
the
perfectly
chamber.
honest, it's the chamber, and we have a pretty good relationship with them. So if it's a situation of just getting a table, I think we could make that happen.
I do know when July 4th is.
27th and 28th, so it's the end of the month.
End of April.
Yeah.
If the commission's interested in staff looking into what is required to reserve a booth, staff can move forward, look that up, and communicate with you guys.
I'm interested.
Okay, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to make a list of priorities, and then I'm going to ask you all to vote on those, because we're going to do it in a sort of parliamentary sort of way like we're supposed to. So I'm going to put number 1 as grant research funding, see what we can find. Number 2, I'm going to have a booth at Holland Happening. And all I ask of you is if you want to do that, so we can get the background stuff done, get the booth itself. But we will need somebody to either be there or be available in some way to assist.
That was
So,
the follow-up question.
Yeah.
What date's April 20-something?
28th, 29th.
April 27th and 28th.
And working with the students from Western, because I really would like to know what the qualifications would be in order to classify something as historical.
Okay.
Are there qualifications? Does that vary by state? I mean, I would really like to know what the students, what their procedures were. That way, we're not just walking into suggesting something should be on the,
So I think
is
that
there a certain
depends-
year or?
Yeah, and that depends on what it is you want, what information it is you want out of that. Do you just want to supplement this information here, that these are potential locations that could be on the registry?
I'm all about definitely
Okay.
saving anything that is historical that needs to be saved for the future. So I'm all about supplementing the historical, absolutely.
So I think that honestly, it doesn't require knowledge in a specialized way.
Has to be 100 years old or something,
Right,
or,
you can do cutoffs and it's very black and white. And so
Sounds
if
like
that's what-
history.
If that's the information that we're looking for, then we can certainly utilize them or, my 12-year-old. It's not that huge of a deal as far as training or anything like that.
and I could do some research as well and maybe ask some of my teachers. I, do go to Washington State University, so I could probably ask, but it's online, so I don't go to class or anything, but I can
Right.
ask through email.
Okay,
If there's
yep.
anything specific.
In order to have a booth, you guys, don't you think we need to have some kind of pertinent information that would incent people to maybe take a look at putting their buildings on the
I would say, and as part of our response, this side of the room, essentially staff responsibility for something like that, we would provide a list of, like tax incentives. Here's what you get out of this, and, put it on a poster board or something along those lines, or flyers or something like that. So, yeah,
Bring it to the forefront, Oak Harbor, we need to
Right.
get this going.
And can we add the next step, that if they also get on the state registry?
to be perfectly honest, I'm not sure how that works.
Okay.
The National Historic Registry.
Or
is-
National Registry.
Yeah, is a lot more stringent
Okay.
in its requirements than ours is. Ours is pretty much, is it old enough and does it still have the character of the original building? Like, has it, or alternatively, if it was somehow renovated long enough ago, does it still have that character?
Well, that's probably good enough anyway, because most owners are really care about how much property tax they pay.
Right, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we can get that information together. We could put this map up and say, hey, is your house on here? Would you be interested in? Because I'm guessing that there are a couple people out there that have historic houses that might be interested in saving on taxes, So it's something that we can certainly get together in a pretty, reasonable amount of time and have ready for you if you choose to do that. And that's, like I said, we can do the background work and see what needs to happen. And if it needs to be a person at the booth, I'm not saying that somebody needs to be there the entire time, but I think it would help the cause a lot to have somebody to speak to it.
Just as a personal note, I know I'm doing business travel the whole week before then, so I probably will less likely want to personally than go out for 2 more days. But
I'm not going anywhere for a while, and I just live right up here. I can devote myself to it. It actually sounds fun.
Okay. Yep, we'll put that on the list. Was there anything else that you can think of that you want to do? Greg, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but as far as talking to the Main Street Association, is that something that you can do? Or, I mean, what would be your thought on that? What would be your process on doing that?
I would
you on the
have,
spot.
if I know the list
Yeah.
of buildings or addresses or whatever it is we use.
Right.
Is it would be addresses, right?
Yeah,
We can take and match those buildings up with the owners and the owners' names and addresses that we have that we solicit all the time, especially in the, downtown area.
yeah. And, to be perfect,
And
Go
do you, because I just prepared a letter this morning for Main Street to send out to just every business owner on why they should take a look at the B&O tax incentive program.
yeah,
So there's no reason why we can't do the same thing and get these, walk in and ask them, or walk in or send them stuff. I'm a believer in, direct marketing, and
right.
that's what we do for the farm, and it seems to keep us in the top echelon of horse farms.
Right. So I'm honestly, I don't know that it would require more than just having, a letter sent out,
Right.
even to your entire membership,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, just
Like,
send-
don't even worry about
Whether they
getting a
have a
list of
cer-
addresses and then having to address each of those individually. If you, as the Main Street Association, can just send out a letter, a boilerplate letter to everybody, then it saves you a ton of work.
Yeah.
And it accomplishes honestly the same thing.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't create more work than you need to.
No, but,
Yeah.
but you want that, that incentive in there so
Yes.
that they know, oh, what do I get out of it? Because
Right.
I don't know what it is about Oak Harbor businesses myself, but it takes a lot to get them moving,
Yeah.
especially building owners.
I think it's important as well, too, because, good for the tax incentives, but I don't know if this is what happened with, but if there isn't a historic preservation, these buildings are torn down and they don't get the recognition that they need. I mean, is that what happened with the windmill? I've always wanted to know, because there's nobody here to protect it, am I right?
The windmill,
Yeah.
the windmill wasn't historic.
Really?
It was built in 1972, I think.
Always wanted to know that, and I have so many people to go and
Yeah.
tell that to now.
I mean, I guess it is over 50 years now, but when it was torn down, I don't think it was.
Okay, that
The
makes
problem
sense.
with that was deferred maintenance, that it
Yeah.
wasn't being maintained in the way it should have been. I think there was, I think the garden, no, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but it,
So
for
it
whatever
wasn't
reason,
historic.
was not maintained. City's responsibility, it's on
Sure.
city property. The intent is to replace it. There is a fundraising effort going on for that.
Sure.
So, I mean, there is that, but generally, a lot of these things come down to maintenance and whether or
Sure.
not somebody cares enough,
Because
really.
I'm sure Main Street's got some nice buildings that need to be protected, for history, and that way they're not torn down. Maybe they don't even know that they're historic. I can't believe we don't have a list of possible historic buildings for Main Street, because I'm all about the tax incentive, but I'm all about saving the buildings too,
Yeah. I mean, other than, a very select few, pretty much all the buildings on that main portion of Pioneer Way are pre-1950, with the exception of maybe 2 that I can think of. So, those
We-
are all well past the eligibility.
And we can devise a letter or, a information sheet that just
Yeah.
says, you're also eligible for grants from the state of Washington from historic preservation. So not only do you get the tax incentives of property taxes, but
Okay, so what I'm going to commit to you as city staff is to utilize our resources to determine appropriateness or application for grants, to get information together to provide to the public. And what that includes is anything that we might need for a booth and any, all the justification or the reasoning for the tax incentives, all that sort of stuff in in some sort of digestible form. And to provide that to you for a booth at Holland Happening and or whatever, future events, and an outreach through the Main Street Association. We'll also get in touch with the Western Washington students to see if that's a potential. So I've got those as 4 kind of goals for the next couple months. Does that sound reasonable to you all? Do you want to add, subtract, modify?
On a letter to potential people, I think it just needs to be broken down into or just main points, like 3 bullets. This kind of tax incentive, this much money potentially for renovations, and how easy it is or something like that. I'm not sure, but why? Not a giant letter or email to them. They don't need to be bogged down with the paragraphs that I'm sure are out there on this process, but something quick and easy to get their attention.
If you get me the information, I can create a brochure or a letter or something we can send out, hand out,
Okay. Nick, can you repeat the 3 bullets that you had? Tax incentive,
Money they can get for renovations,
grants, okay,
and I keep forgetting my third one was just how easy it could be.
okay,
Process, the fact that people can help them, it's not something they'll do all on their own.
right.
And are we
Okay.
going to be able to maybe meet or talk before the next meeting, the 3 of us, or
Yeah, we can get together.
is that what?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I want to know if we were going to be able to talk outside of the
Oh, yeah.
the meeting for plans for the booth or whatnot, because we're not supposed to meet again for another 2 months.
We have each other's emails.
Okay, that'll work.
I would say, I'm not sure how that works as far as open public meetings and all that sort of thing.
There's a legal thing.
It has something in this document that talks about
Yeah. Let me take a look at that and get back to you from a legal standpoint. Up until then, I would say only email each other individually, so that you're not, and you're not making any decisions here. So there is that, but at the same time, I don't want us to get in trouble. So, yeah, keep your emails.
I
Yeah.
would like to just provide clarification. Any communication involving 3 or more commissioners constitutes a quorum, and so any group emails would become a serial meeting if you were to. So what you could do is you could email any information you would like to a staff member. I would be the liaison for the commission, and then I could absolutely forward that information back to the group and take feedback from commissioners and forward information to the group. Otherwise, any communication that needs to happen as a group, we could absolutely have. I know you might have more discussion after this meeting, but as much you want to have during this meeting, I would absolutely recommend
Okay.
everything be on record.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just for if we wanted to have a booth for and I don't think it's called Holland Happen anymore. I don't think, but anyway, if we wanted to have one for the festival that they're holding in April, what we wanted to do for that and what we wanted to have at the booth. Maybe if we know exactly what it was, because that's in less than 30 days, isn't it? And then I could just email Sarah with the ideas that I have, and then you could do the same. How does that sound? And we could see if we like each other's ideas through an email, because that's pretty quick. Because I think the festival's at the end of this month. If that was still a priority.
There was talk
Yeah.
of a big version of that picture to physically look at so that people can think about where they live
Yes.
or buildings they own
Yep.
if they don't live there.
Yeah, yeah, we'll get that to you.
Okay.
So let's, again, let me get my priority list here. Number 1 is grants. Number 2 is a booth for Holland Happening, or whatever the name of it is. Number 3 is Western Washington students potentially utilized for an inventory. And number 4 is outreach with Main Street Association. Okay, so I will focus on the three items that Nick mentioned as far as tax incentives, any potential grants for renovation for individual property owners, and just the ease of the process. And I think that those three things can be applied to the booth, the Main Street letter, anything else. So we'll be able to focus on that and then provide that same information to everybody. It makes it more streamlined for myself and for you all to know, what it is we're going to be doing. So,
Are we going to have any pamphlets or any sort of thing to hand to the crowd, or no?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I would like to do, is at least get even if it's just a postcard size thing. And what I will do is talk to whoever, I don't know if Sabrina's still doing the website stuff, but get a web page. We have something on the website, but I think it's pretty dry right now, and get something that has a little bit more information on it, so. And
Great idea.
Maybe have a QR code or something on there. People can use that, so. Okay. All right, so with those priorities, I think let's go ahead and establish those priorities officially via a vote, and then if you have further things you want to discuss, we can do that. Otherwise, you can vote to adjourn the meeting as well. So in order to do that, I'll lead us through it. So what you can do is ask for a motion to have the four priorities kind of officially directed to staff to review and assist with, and then you'll get a second on that, and then a vote, and then that will be my official direction to do those things. You're welcome.
Can I go ahead and get a vote on, are you going ahead on the 4 bulletin points that we're going to have for that we're working on for our next meeting?
I'll second that.
All votes in favor?
Cool. All right, and then like I said on the agenda, we don't have anything else on there, so you can either vote to adjourn the meeting, or if you have something else you want to bring up.
Does anyone have anything else that they'd like to bring up, or vote to adjourn the meeting? Anything else they'd like to say?
I'm set.
I think we're good.
All right.
Meeting's adjourned.